everyone. Welcome or welcome back. Today, I want to talk about how I teach a group fitness class without falling back into people pleasing. Specifically, how I balance incorporating feedback while not abandoning myself in the process. So, if you've ever felt anxious about how you're being perceived when you have to perform, whether that's teaching, presenting, or leading a meeting, this video is for you. And if you're new here, this channel is for fellow recovering people pleasers. I share real moments from my day to day life, what worked, what didn't, and what I'm learning as I deconstruct fawning and try to live more authentically. So, I recently started teaching this group fitness class called Body Combat, and I teach it every week. It's a mixed martial arts inspired workout. So, there's a lot of punching, kicking, and there's choreographed tracks that are set to different music. So I memorize the routines and then I can mix and match songs to create my own playlist. And honestly, that was a big reason why I wanted to teach. I really like a lot of the songs, and so I wanted to play my favorite ones. And I've been teaching my own class for about a month now. And at first, I was a bit hesitant about starting to teach my own class and not just subbing for people. It wasn't necessarily I was afraid of messing up because, instructors mess up all the time, but it's more so I worry about how people will perceive me. So it's a pretty complicated class, to be honest. It takes usually 5 to 6 sessions before it really clicks. And I feel this pressure to make sure that people come back, to make sure I'm learning everyone's name, talking to them either before or after class, giving them high fives, giving them encouragement, things like that. And, those things, they do come naturally to me. And I enjoy doing those things and getting to know people that take the class. What's harder for me is when I don't really get a lot of feedback from participants. So, for example, I'm sure any fitness instructor can relate, but when I ask everybody "Oh, how's everyone doing? How you guys feeling?" and maybe only one person responds and it's just sort of a pity response. When that happens, my brain immediately goes, okay, people don't like this. They're not going to come back. I'm not doing enough to make them come back. And that's sort of where my people pleasing voice kicks in. But, I try to remind myself not everybody wants to yell in a fitness class. And sometimes maybe they do want to yell, but they're just really tired. Maybe they got a good workout, or maybe they're just really focused. So I'm trying to remind myself that a lot of times silence doesn't necessarily mean rejection. And, I also worry if I don't give somebody enough individual attention. Maybe people that might come in a little bit late and maybe I didn't get to talk to them after class. I get worried that they won't return and they'll think that I wasn't very welcoming. But then I try to come back to it's not about me talking to every single person in the room. It's really more so about how they felt while they were in the room. Did they feel capable, successful? Did they feel challenged? And that matters more than whether I personally validated them every 5 minutes or had a 15-minute conversation with them. Those things might help, but that's not really what's going to bring somebody back to class. And here's sort of the bigger thing that I'm learning just about anything in, performance or having to present something. I might not be everyone's cup of tea. Some people, they want a super zen instructor. That's not me. I'm high energy. I'm expressive. I'm really animated. And I'm not going to tamper that. It's frankly my class. And I want to lead in spaces where I don't have to shapeshift. And I feel like as recovering people pleasers, our instinct is to scan the room and adjust accordingly, to morph into whatever other people prefer and try to earn their approval. But I think leadership requires something different from us. It requires knowing our why. It requires saying, hey, I hear your feedback, but I'm still choosing to do this. And that doesn't mean I ignore feedback. I actually invite it, especially on things maybe like song choices or choreography. Those are things that I'm not going to be upset or offended if somebody wants to change that. And I want them to feel involved. But I'm also trying to be discerning. Not every piece of feedback needs to be integrated. And I think that's the difference between growth and people pleasing. Growth says, is this aligned with my vision? Whereas people pleasing says, will this make them like me more? And I feel like the more leadership roles that I step into, whether it's teaching maybe college students, teaching body combat, presenting things at work, or even just showing up on YouTube. I realized that I have to ground myself first because if I am just constantly adjusting to everybody else and all of their feedback, that means that my voice disappears. And making everybody else comfortable cannot come at the cost of abandoning myself. Making ourselves happy, being authentic, and being aligned with our values, that has to be the priority. So, if you're comfortable sharing, I would love to hear. How do you decide whether or not to incorporate feedback? And if this resonated, you can like or subscribe so you don't miss future reflections on boundaries and recovering from people pleasing. And thank you for being here. We'll keep deconstructing people pleasing, one moment at a time.